Hi guys, today we are going to start a new chapter and we are going to take notes on it. So let's get started. Today we're going to talk about matter, properties, and phases. Okay, so matter, this describes everything that we see, touch, smell, or feel. Okay, so matter is really anything that has mass and takes up space. Okay, so this is like air, anything that we have, pencils, pens, tables, grass, everything. So when we're talking about matter, we know that the smallest unit of matter is called an atom. So this is the smallest unit of matter. So atoms are made of smaller particles, and we have protons, which are positively charged particles. And then we have neutrons, which are electrically neutral particles. This means they have no charge. Okay, they're just neutral. And then we have electrons. And the electrons are negatively charged particles. Okay, now electrons have almost no mass. Okay, so then let's erase my scribble here. Let's change colors. Well, actually, I'm going to draw you my beautiful little diagram here. You know, my artistic ability is non-existent, so don't judge me too harshly. Okay, so let's put, we'll do green. We'll put one here, and one here, and one about here, and here, here, okay? And we'll put one right here too. And all these will have a minus sign in them. So since they have a minus sign in them, that means these are electrons, right? Because remember, electrons are negatively charged, okay? So then let's change to a different color. Let's use pink. Then, well, first, I am just forgetting myself here today. We forgot the electrons on this orbit. Okay, so then we'll go back to pink or whatever color this is, and we'll draw some of these. They look like little berries, right? And these just have little dots on them. Okay. Now these are, now there's no charge because there's just little dots on them, right? So these are neutrons, because remember, neutrons are neutral, right? There's no charge. And then in the center, we'll draw these that have pluses in them, right? So these would be our protons, because protons have a positive charge, right? So the protons and the neutrons, form the nucleus, okay? The nucleus is the center of an atom, okay? And these are formed by protons and neutrons, okay? So they're going to stick together and they're going to form the center of the atom called the nucleus, okay? Now this nucleus has a net positive charge. These electrons here are going to orbit the circle around, okay, the nucleus. So now let's talk a little bit about changes, okay? So let's go back. We'll put blue on. So what are physical properties? Well, that is the way something, anything, looks, feels, smells, and tastes. Okay, so you're going to use your senses and figure out what the physical properties are, right? You're going to look at a blue gumball and you're going to know it's blue. If you taste it, you're going to know it's sweet, right? So it's easy to classify matter by these characteristics. Some common physical properties used to differentiate matter are some other terms that I will define for you here. And let's change colors here. So let's talk about malleability. Crazy word, right? Malleability. This is how easily something can be flattened, shaped, or pressed. So if we think of something that's very malleable, we would think of something like a marshmallow, right? Marshmallows you can smash, you can smush it in your hand, you can flatten it, you can make it into a heart, right? So it's very, very malleable. Another term for a physical property would be magnetism. Okay, and just like it sounds with the name, it's whether or not something is magnetic. Okay, so you pick up your spoon from your plate and you realize that it's magnetic, or the paper clip that's holding your papers together is magnetic, okay? A piece of plastic that is not magnetic would not have magnetism, right? That would not be a property of its It would not be a property of plastic because plastic is not magnetic. So, another physical property is boiling point and melting point. And again, just like the name says, it's the temperature at which something boils or melts. Okay? And then the last one that we're going to discuss for properties is solubility. Okay? So this is how easily something dissolves in another substance. Okay? So solubility would be like sugar when you put it in hot coffee and you stir it around and it melts and dissolves, right? That is solubility. So when we're talking about these things, we can say that a physical change is any change to the physical properties of matter such as its size, shape, or state. And when we talk about state, we mean solid, liquid, or gas, right? So the final product of any physical change, it's still composed of the same matter, right? So you can take a piece of ice and you can melt it, which makes it into liquid water, and then you can refreeze it. It's still water, we're just changing its state, okay? So we can also talk about chemical properties. So chemical properties describes the ability of something to undergo different chemical changes. Okay, so let's talk about some examples of chemical properties. So we have flammability, which, just like the name sounds, it's how easily something lights on fire. Okay, and then we also have reactivity. And this is how reactive something is to oxygen, water, light, so on and so forth, right? So, for example, if you take fire and you pour water on it, it's reactive, right? It puts the water out, or it puts the fire out, right? Or if you take something that is neon or glow in the dark and you shine light on it and then you turn the lights off, it's going to exhibit a different chemical chain or chemical property because it's reactive, right? It's reacting to the light, it's going to charge, and then when you turn the lights out, it's going to glow. So when any of these chemical properties change, the matter goes through a chemical change. So if we talk about chemical change, we talk about any changes in chemical properties, right? So for example, if you have a log and it catches on fire and it makes ashes, that is a chemical change, right? Because it was a solid and now it is a semi-solid. So these are the characteristics of chemical changes. So we have change in color. So when rust forms on metal, that is a change of color, right? We have change in energy, right? So if you take a firework and you light it off, it starts with minimal energy, and then when it explodes, it's exuding a lot of energy, right? We have change in odor, right? So if you leave food in your fridge and it starts to rot, it smells bad, right? So that would be a chemical change because it changed the way it smells. And then the last one is formation of a gas or solid. So when you add things together and a change happens, it can change the properties, right? So if you take baking soda and vinegar and you put them together, you get the bubbles. Well, the bubbles are because gas formed, right? So that has undergone a chemical change. So chemical changes are a lot harder to reverse than physical changes, right? So remember that log that we talked about earlier that we burned, and it had a chemical change, right? Because it went from a solid to a semi-solid, right? Because of the ashes. So can you take the ashes and put them back together to make the log? That would be incredibly difficult to do. So chemical changes are a lot harder to reverse. You can't put a burnt log back together, but you can refreeze ice, right? So we will finish the rest of our notes next time, and I will see you then.